Okay, we're live.
Good afternoon. My name is.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Connie Romanis, and I'm with the League, member of the League of Women Voters of Greater Peoria. And on behalf of the League, I would like to, and the Peoria Public Library, we would like to welcome you to the candidate forum today for the First District, Southern District Trustee for the Peoria Park District. And our candidates today are Alex Sierra and Joseph Cassidy. We will appreciate the audience that is here and those who are joining us through our live stream channel on YouTube. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We do not endorse candidates or political parties. We do take positions on issues after a lengthy study process. One of the missions of the League is voter education. We do this through candidate forums. The League of Women Voters has been doing candidate forums for many years throughout the country. It's our way for you to hear directly from the candidates. We hope that you will walk away from here today with a little more information about the issues in the community and the candidates themselves to help you when you go out to vote, either through early voting or voting by mail or voting on election day. And I do want to remind you that this election race will be on the general election, and that starts, I believe, March 17th for early voting, and election day, of course, is April 1st. And that is in the city of Peoria only, and that's through a home rule process that they used to change that. Our moderator today is Chris Kiergaard. Chris will run through the rules and we will get us started. He already has a few questions prepared by the League, but we're relying on you, the audience, to provide us with more. So please, if you haven't filled out a card with a question, there are cards available. We have two people who raise their hands, our two collectors. They have cards if you need one, and if you have one and you're filling it out, please give it to them. And I'll turn it over to Chris. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you both for being here. I'm Chris Kiergaard. I'll be your moderator for today. Just a couple of ground rules before we begin, and the candidates have both agreed to these rules in advance of commencing today. They will each receive 2 minutes of time to make an opening statement. They have drawn lots for who is going to begin with the opening statement, and we will proceed from there with the other candidate receiving the first question, and we will go back and forth between them so they each have opportunities to answer a question first and second. Those question answers will be given in 30 seconds each. They will each have 1 minute for closing remarks, and in a two-person race, we also have the opportunity here for each of the candidates, if they wish, they will have two opportunities during the forum where if they wish to directly rebut something that has been said, they will let me know that, and they will have 30 seconds to provide a direct rebuttal of a question before we resume our candidate order. For you as the audience, as Connie said, we strongly encourage your participation by submitting questions to either of the folks who are moving around the room accepting those questions. However, we do ask, for the benefit of our live stream viewers, that you otherwise remain as quiet as possible during the forum. There will be time afterward if you want to directly engage with a question with one of the candidates if they choose to stick around after the forum, but otherwise, please remain silent during the forum. There will be an opportunity at the end for us to give both candidates a round of applause for putting themselves out there and giving a choice in this race, as well as the other races where you have a choice of candidates. I believe that covers everything as far as the rules for this. As Connie said, we have come up with some questions in advance that will be supplemented by the questions that you submit. These questions have not been shared with either of the candidates. They've remained in my possession and closed until we are beginning here. So let's go ahead and get started. Mr. Sierra, by lots you drew, and you are going to give the first of the opening statements.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you to the Greater Peoria League of Women Voters. Thank you to the Lincoln Branch Library for providing this space and platform for us to talk about ourselves, our candidacy, and why we see fit to run for this office. My name is Alex, A-L-E-X, excuse the list, but I have to give that disclaimer. But my platform is very simple. I'm focused on any and all opportunity that is going to move us forward. What that looks like is seizing the moment. And that's exactly what I've done since I've been on the board for the past 4 years. I served as Southern District Trustee, most recently also the Vice President of the Peoria Park District Board of Trustees. But my service didn't start with the Park District. And some of you may recall, I also served on the Peoria Public Schools Board of Education, but it didn't start with Peoria Public Board of Education. Service has been embedded within our fabric since the nearly 100 years we've been planted here in the city of Peoria. And I look forward to service continuing for 100 more with me, first here as Southern District Trustee of the Peoria Park District. Thank you.
All right, and again, we ask that everybody remain silent during the forum itself and offer their applause at the end. Mr. Cassidy.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you to the League of Women's Voters for inviting me to this forum, and thank you all for attending. My name is Joseph Cassidy. I was born and raised in Peoria, Illinois. I am a lawyer by trade. I work for the law firm of Miller, Hall & Triggs, where I focus my practice on municipal government law, which I think gives me a good background on how the Park District and other municipalities work. I previously served as a Central District Trustee before relocating to Atlanta, Georgia. Excuse me. Since moving back, I have a renewed sense of pride in the city of Peoria, and I believe the Peoria Park District is, if not one of the greatest assets that Peoria has to offer. Particularly in the Southern District, the amount of history, the amount of facilities that we have that I feel are sometimes underutilized. So my focus, if elected, would be on providing consistent, affordable, reliable programming for the Southern District constituents. Thank you.
All right, and actually, Mr. Cassidy, you can remain standing since the first question goes to you, and our order will continue moving back and forth like that. So, since both candidates have served on the park board previously, or are serving currently, I want to ask each of you from the very beginning, and we'll start with one of the audience questions. How have you worked to create opportunities for families to access affordable or free recreational programs and activities?
When I previously sat on the board, it was during a difficult time. It was right at the height of COVID. A lot of programs were shut down. Funding was an issue. One particular issue with my district was the closing of the Franciscan Center. And I fought tooth and nail to keep that open. I was unsuccessful. I think a lot of the credit goes to the staff, but during my time, pushing things forward wasn't really what they were trying to do due to the COVID crisis. So keeping everything status quo during that time and keeping the Park District alive was what we kind of focused on.
All right, Mr. Sierra.
Thanks, Chris. So actually, we've really leaned on a variety of models of partnership, both internal and external, to ensure that our facilities and programs are accessible to everyone. First, internally, whether that be the Summer of Fun Passes, where we are partnering with Representative Leader Jahan Gordon Booth to ensure folks at a low or moderate income can gain access to facilities at little to no charge. That's not irony, that's intentionality. Similar another partnership with Peoria Grown, once living at the Logan Recreational Center, now has scaled to the Treewind Park Pavilion and now has helped rebrand the identity of Treewind Park Pavilion but also bring a health and nutrition hub to our most devastated, most dilapidated, most disenfranchised parts of our community, the deepest part of the South Side. And those are just two examples. We have the Peoria Southside Soccer Club that brings about 300 to 400 people every Sunday for a majority of the year, specifically Latino households. So those are just 4 examples right there, and I'm happy to continue, but I just got a 30-second warning.
All right, and actually stay standing because the next question goes to you as the first answer. Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of whiplash there going, answer, and back and forth. So, all right, to the next question. What do you view as the improvements in the Park District that are still most needed? Not looking at programs that are currently being worked on, but others that you would like to see worked on or improved, and how would they be financed?
Absolutely. So that finance question is a big one because, like Joe said, I mean, not much has changed from the COVID situation when it comes to our financials, but we have become really innovative as a result of our staff. Carrie Ross, our superintendent of finance, absolutely phenomenal. Jumping into the question, what are the priorities? Infrastructure. We have a lot of outdated parks and facilities, and that makes it hard for people with mobility barriers to gain access. We have to modernize. We have about 30% of our infrastructure, park infrastructure, playgrounds specifically, is outdated and need to be modernized. In addition to that, we need to modernize the Riverplex facility as well. Right now, we have extremely low membership and we only have one strong corporate partnership. But that one strong corporate partnership and that stagnant membership is not a sustainable model of growth. We have to focus on economic opportunities for growth. In addition to that as well, we also have to work on workforce solutions. So as the chair of diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Peoria Park District, one of my focuses is we've already created entryways for individuals who are at entry to mid-level jobs. Now I want to work with our team to focus on attraction of leadership and executive leadership positions to make sure that the folks who are in those decision-making positions are making decisions that are inclusive of everyone.
All right, Mr. Cassidy, your response.
Thank you. Could you please repeat the question?
Certainly. What are the improvements in the Park District, that is, not issues that are currently being addressed, but others that you believe should be addressed if you're elected, that are most needed, and how should those be financed?
I think Alex makes a good point that, especially in the Southern District,
Bring it up a little bit.
a lot of the facilities and the parks are outdated. I think we need to improve those, and that I think will allow the programming that I hope to establish and more people to come in and use those facilities. I think that public-private partnerships could be a great asset, bringing in local businesses to help fund some of those projects and get involved with the community, continuing to aggressively go after grants that are available, which I know the staff does. And just programming, they take fees for those programming, and those fees get put back into the Park District. I also think supporting businesses, whether it be hiring for Park District jobs, should be from our community. I think, we pay the tax dollars to the Park District, those dollars are going to those contractors, and they should be reinvesting that money back into our community, opposed to hiring out of state or even sometimes out of country contractors for bigger jobs.
All right.
Thank you.
Next question, starting with you and moving to Mr. Sierra. The Park District offers more than 3,000 programs throughout the course of the year at 50 locations throughout the district. We are bar none the largest park district facility by land in the state of Illinois. So what specific programs would you champion to be created or expanded in the Southern District that you seek to represent?
Specifically in the Southern District, summertime is obviously the best time. I think we need to bring back day camps, get more people involved. Weekend festivals at the various parts of the Southern District. Anything that would get the community together, get the community excited and more involved in the Park District. The Park District has an amazing history, especially on the south side. I'm very passionate about the Park District, and I think if we can get people excited and more involved, that would help facilitate the growth and the programming that we hope to achieve.
All right, Mr. Sierra.
So, as I look to continue on my service, I'm really looking to advance two core focuses of programming with the Park District. One is to make sure that our programming is diverse, not only by individuals in terms of household and their income, but also by geographical location. If you look at a heat map of our programming, you see a strong concentration of free programming in the Southern District, which is great. We want to maintain that. But we also know that free programming is not always the best and highest quality. So how do I work with my staff to strategically bring advanced, higher quality recreational programming to the Southern District? That way we ensure that our youth and our adults and even our senior and elderly populations have access to not only free and accessible programming, but high quality programming. In addition to that, our health and wellness programming. We've scratched on the surface when it comes to the nutrition hub at Treewind Park Pavilion. We have to scale that. We have to look in how do we bring in health partners like Carl and OSF to bring medical services that traditionally are barriers for our residents as well. So my two focuses over the course of my next term is health and wellness programming and diverse programming to ensure strong qualities.
Okay. I'm going to change tack for a minute on this next question, which will begin with you and then move to Mr. Cassidy. And I want to address the issue of safety in the Park District. Peoria Park police officers are, of course, represented not only in their daily patrols, but at major events throughout the district and help with overall crime prevention. Is there enough funding and staffing among those officers to ensure patron safety throughout the vast district that we have?
I think that's a difficult question. And it's a difficult question because of the police force that we have, which is less than 10 people. They do a phenomenal job of maintaining our nearly 3,000 acres of land. Less than 10 people on the Park District side is maintaining safety all the way from Dunlap to the south side of Peoria. So we have a great force, but it's a difficult question because there's always more that can be done. And the truth is we don't have the strong pipelining of finances to increase the workforce when it comes to policing. In fact, a trend that you see across park districts in the state, but also the country, is that they are eliminating their park district police, going into intergovernment agreements with their municipal governances to help cover that land. Now, I'm not proposing that at all. I firmly believe that the Park District need our own police and security force. But what I am saying is that, as we already said, resources are scarce, but our staff has remained tactful, strategic, innovative, and as a result, we have one of the strongest and safest park districts in the state.
Mr. Cassidy.
I think there's always room for improvement. I think there's, as Alex did point out, the Park District Police is a small group. They can only do so much. They do a great job for what they have. The city of Peoria does assist. I'm not aware of any agreements as far as continuing obligations between the two departments, but I know that when there are big events held, like the 4th of July fireworks down on the riverfront, the 4th of July or 3rd of July fireworks at Glen Oak, the city police often come in and assist the Park District in keeping those events safe. So of course there's always room for improvement, but it is difficult with the funding. And the Park District kind of acts as some type of a backup to the city of Peoria. Obviously the Park District Police has jurisdiction over all the parks, as they should, and they do their best to cover all those parks, for 4 people on duty at a time can only be in so many places at once. So I think that cooperating with the city would definitely be beneficial.
All right. Next question for you. The Park District, particularly over the last decade, has embraced a wider use of public-private partnerships in its operations, though it is not new in that time. For example, the Peoria Players Theater is an example of a public-private partnership that has been active in the district for decades. There has been more of that since the restaurant in the park is a fairly recent example of that. Does the district need to do more public-private partnerships, and what specific areas or parks might you look to if you're going to try more of them?
I think we definitely could use more. I mean, public-private partnerships creates funding for the park district, which obviously is beneficial and great. So yes, I mean, we should absolutely pursue any public-private partnership that, we can. Obviously vet them and look into them before anything is finalized. But I definitely think it's a great asset. As far as particulars, I don't know of any particulars right now ongoing. But I think if I were elected, I believe I have a lot of connections throughout the city, also on the south side, where I could get more involved with some of those businesses and see if anything else could be worked out and get them more involved.
All right, Mr. Sierra.
While serving on the Park District, my primary model of strengthening community has been partnership. And we see it throughout the entire Southern District, from Averyville to the deepest part of the South Side. Now, taking a step back a bit, as the Vice President of the Peoria Area Chamber of Commerce, I understand that holistic community development involves the residents, but also involves business. So I think that to your question of what more we can do, I think improving our private partnerships and increasing the amount of commercialization within the Southern region is a great mechanism to transform the Southern District. A vision for the South Side, a vision for the downtown, a vision for the Northern Valley, but with a holistic view and focus. Now, some examples in which we can strengthen, I would love to partner with OSF Mobile Healthcare Clinic to bring some healthcare services down to all of our distressed communities, especially in Averyville. You see some growing levels as a result of a recent Peoria County Health Department report. So that's just one example, but I've also already hit on some. The Southside Soccer Club, not irony, intention. I was one that can be in that partnership. Peoria Grown. Julie Bryant was in the audience. She did a phenomenal job at sustaining programming. She engaged the Park District and said, we need more, and guess what? We rose to the occasion, and there's still more to be done. So to bring this in full slot, I need to stop.
All right, you saved me from having to say anything about it.
I take after my mother.
And actually, you're up with the next one, and I want to focus a little bit because each of you have kind of described budget concerns that face the Park District in expanding some of our abilities. So, what possible grants are there that you might pursue out there, or encourage staff to pursue in specific areas that focus on things that you would like to see done?
Absolutely. So as it pertains to our streams of revenue, grants is a great mechanism that I think our staff has done a phenomenal job in seeking. And I'm sorry, I keep looking at Chris. He's asking me the question. Apology, y'all. But I think that we also need to consider private sponsorship as well, and how we can intentionally increase private investment within the Southern District. I love the model of grant funding. A lot of it is public funds, taxpayers' money that we're already paying into. How can we get creative and bring additional resources outside of the ones that a lot of us feel are already owed to us? I think that there's some opportunity to pursue some DCEO funding outside of what we've already pursued to actually secure projects that we have not been able to secure, but we have already announced prematurely. one project would be the roller rink. Although not in the Southern District, it is a regional attraction for our entire community. So that's just one example. But I think that also, to be very clear, one thing that I'm focused on is how can we court big corporate investors to ultimately invest. A great example is, I'm not going to name the company right now, but we're talking about over $100,000 of potential private investment. Those are the type of intentional conversations that you have to have, but it takes a very intentional person to be in the seat.
Mr. Cassidy.
Yeah, grants are very important, especially for the Park District. I know Gian Gordon Booth has been, an absolute big player in getting the Park District a lot of great grants. The Golf Learning Center renovations have come from a grant through her. I think it's difficult to tell what the future will hold as far as grant money from the government with the changing of the presidency. It's kind of up in the air. I don't think anybody knows when, how that money is going to come out and what it's going to be directed to. I think it's pretty safe to say that there are going to be available grants for infrastructure improvement. So I think those we should pursue aggressively. And as we stated before, at the beginning of I think it's the first question, that infrastructure on the south side could definitely use some improvements. So pursuing those grants and using them for rebuilding and repurposing those facilities would be one of my goals.
All right. Our next couple of questions sort of center around specific portions of the Park District or specific services that are offered by the Park District. So, and you'll each have an opportunity to answer one of them first. So, one of the things that the Park District is, of course, known for is the many recreational hiking or walking or biking trails that are within it. How can you ensure adequate or even increased funds for better maintenance of the forest trails and natural areas throughout the Park District?
I don't know the Park District specific financials. I leave that up to the professionals. The superintendents, the staff at the Park District is phenomenal. All the superintendents that have been there for a very long time. They do great work. My role as a trustee would be to oversee their expertise, not to micromanage what they do, not to, meddle in the everyday business of the park board or the Park District employees, especially the superintendents. So to answer your question, I would defer to Superintendent Ross, and I would speak with her and get details with her and then go from there.
All right, Mr. Sierra.
Yeah, so we have some of the richest trails in the city, but also the country. A recent livability report actually identified the Peoria area as one of the most environmental friendly places, and it was a direct result of our trail system. Now, when we talk about maintaining our trails, we have to get very creative. Funding is definitely one thing, but partnership is another opportunity too. How can we leverage, like Mayor Ali would like to say, other people's money, if you will? So I think the first thing is, while I agree with Joe, we don't want to get in the weeds. I see myself as complementary to the staff in helping them find funding opportunities. Again, intentionality. So that's step one, right? How can I complement what the staff is doing? In addition to that, we have to look at our areas of growth for our trails and figure out where and who would potentially be interested. A conversation that we're currently looking at right now is the trail system currently stops at the riverfront. We need to figure out a way that we connect the riverfront trail to the deep south side, right? A lot of funding does not exist for that. However, again, courting private partnerships and having conversations with individuals like the city to figure out how do we collaborate to get the biggest bang of our buck with the money that we have.
Okay, next facilities related question. And you're all good. Next facilities related question here, and whether it's kids, grandkids, nieces, and nephews, the zoo is a frequent destination, but there is a rather distinct difference between the older part of the zoo and the newer part of the zoo. What plans would you have to pursue upgrades to the older parts of the zoo? And again, how would you find funding for that?
So we've already started actually improving several parts of the zoo. As recent as last year, our staff has just undergone a very intentional redevelopment and reinvestment into the zoo that landed us a national accreditation. As a result of that national accreditation, members of the zoo, Peoria Zoological Society, can now go to other facilities like San Diego, if you will, and gain the same access that they would as they would the Peoria Zoo with those member benefits. Now, we are looking to do more. We just actually announced a capital campaign, a multi-million-dollar capital campaign that we're going to be undergoing to make sure that the accreditation that we have captured, we can keep, because it is not guaranteed over a long period of time. When it comes to the infrastructure at the zoo, the old part does appear to be an eyesore, but it's not something that we are waiting to fix. We've already started to make improvements, like the rehab to the anaconda exhibit, like the rehab to the bat exhibit, right? But until we can identify funds, we're not waiting until someone come help us. We're making do with what we have by maintaining to ensure that what we do have does not continue to get worse.
Yeah, Mr. Cassidy.
Yeah, the zoo is a great benefit to Peoria. I've been to many weddings there that they host, which brings in additional funding for the zoo, for the park district. Holding other events there could also bring in funding, conferences, business meetings, things like that. The new Africa exhibit is great, and it does make the other portion look a little bit outdated, but I don't think it's super urgent to rehab that and make it as modern as the Africa exhibit. I think that allocating these resources intentionally, as Mr. Sierra would say, is very important. The park district has so many programs, so many parks, so many facilities, that allocating those resources is very difficult. So I think if the zoo can fund itself, that would be best. And by doing that, they could, as I said, host weddings, host birthday parties, host conferences, business meetings, things like that, charge a fee, and use that money to fix the infrastructure. Thank you.
All right. Now, based on what you know of the needs in the Southern District and what you know of the most popular programs that are meeting those needs right now, what does the Park District need to do more of in the Southern District?
I admit that I am new to the Southern District. A lot of you don't recognize me. I'm not as well known as Mr. Sierra in the Southern District, but what I can tell you is that I'm very passionate about community service and listening to the constituents. So I would put boots on the ground and go out to the communities and door knock and find out what they want. I don't know what that is right now. I know poverty and crime are issues that the Southern District faces. And again, I think programming, getting teenagers and young adults in jobs within the Park District through, day camps and soccer camps and things like that, keep them busy during the summer, would definitely be beneficial. But to answer your question, I would go out to the community and I would ask them what they see are the biggest issues and discuss with them candidly and openly and see how we can get them resolved.
All right, Mr. Sierra.
Chris, can you repeat the question?
Certainly, based upon what you know of the programs that do the most good within the Southern District and the programs that would be most in demand in the Southern District, what more? What else would you try to pursue for that?
So by far, our strongest programming in the Southern District comes out of Proctor Center, and that is a result of the I-3 funding from the state in partnership with individuals like Senator Kaler and Representative Jahan Gordon Booth, but also private donorship as well by individuals like Greg Pine, who helps to scale STEAM programming to, again, underserved youth. Now, knowing that our strongest programming is educational, what that tells me is that there's a thirst to increase the education amongst our young people. Our young people are eager to learn more. And oftentimes that's not the narrative when we talk about the Southern District. We talk about how it's so much crime and how everyone's leaving. But we're not talking about how a product of the Southern District itself redirected energy and as a result has become the youngest elected official, has become the youngest executive leader of the chamber, the oldest member-based organization, had executed the Southern District Tour in partnership with Councilwoman Denise Jackson, had supported as the field representative of the 17th Congressional District and helped secure funding for the demolition of Harrison and McKinley schools. But that was all because I had a thirst for education and I wanted more. So that's what I'm focused on, is meeting our youth where we're at, meeting their parents where they're at, and their grandparents who are raising our youth, and then feeding them exactly what they're asking for to learn.
Okay, next question. So we've discussed during the forum the significant size of the Park District.
Mm-hmm.
We also know that the first district represents some of the core areas of Peoria. Park District budget has gone from roughly 49.1 million, and for the current year, roughly $46.7 million. Again, big district, lots of needs. Have we grown or expanded too much in our service area and even our programming to be able to afford what we need to do?
So I want to make sure that I understand your question. And you're asking, has the Park District provided too much and can we maintain what we have?
Can we afford to maintain what we have
Uh-huh.
with the size of the district and the number of areas we're offering programming?
So the answer is yes. We can afford to maintain exactly what we're offering now, and that's the result, again, of that very intentional leadership from the board, but also our superintendent of finance and our CEO building out a very strong reserves that provides us some cushion in the event that we're ever in trouble of having to pull programming. In addition to that, we are also in a position to take a very strategic look at the programming and figure out, to Joe's question, what's working and what's not? And for what's not working, how do we redirect that energy? Intentionality, people. I'll give you an example of that. Southside soccer was not something that once existed. Happy Feet is what it was called at Proctor Center. Zero participation. What do? We linked on a private partnership. And as a result, 300 to 400 people in Logan Park. You don't see that anywhere else. Nobody's bringing that. So to answer the question, yes, we can maintain what we have. The conversation then becomes, let's reevaluate what we have. Let's take stock and let's make some pretty hard decisions. And in addition to that, let's go out here and find the people who are doing the work, realizing that we don't have to do it all ourselves.
Mr. Cassidy.
I definitely think that it is maintainable. And again, I would attribute that to the amazing staff that the Park District has, the superintendents of all the divisions of the Park District do just such an amazing job. And they are the ones that expand and know the budget and know what we can do and what we can't do. And as a board member, again, I would trust in their judgment. They're the professionals. They're the ones that deal with this every single day. Again, my role as a trustee would not be get involved in the day-to-day activities of those employees. I would see my job as more oversight, setting policy, and allowing the executive director and the superintendents to use their discretion and to do what they do. I mean, they've been doing it for such a long time. The Park District's been thriving for such a long time. So I trust them, I trust in their work. So yes, I do think it's sustainable.
All right, Mr. Cassidy has asked for a 30-second rebuttal.
Mr. Sierra, but thank you, Mr.
I'm
Curtis.
sorry, Mr. Cassidy.
So yeah, so I just want to. I think Joe and I have a different different definition as what it means to serve or be a trustee. While I am confident in our staff's ability, sometimes you do have to get in the weeds unapologetically because there are tough decisions that are often made by staff that really impact the quality of life of our residents. A great example, River Pike Summer Camp. That was something slotted to be canceled, disinvested from one of our, again, most disenfranchised communities. What happened? Alex caught that, and we reallocated that funding, and summer camp still exists to this day.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. And I'll get your names right, I promise.
I don't know, I have no problem helping you, Chris.
All right. Mr. Cassidy, because you answered the last question, you now answer the first one, and we'll resume our regular order. The Park District in the last several years voted to oppose carbon dioxide pipelines that, the argument goes could threaten public health and safety near public areas. One was slated to go through parts of the city of Peoria. That particular proposal died, but there is a chance that it could be resurrected. Would you oppose other CO2 pipelines if the issue comes back before the board?
I would need to look into that and get more facts. I would probably, could you repeat the last part of the question, please?
Certainly, if the issue comes back before the board, if there is another such pipeline proposed, would you oppose such a pipeline as a board member?
And again, I can't answer that question definitively right now. My intuition says I probably would, but again, I would want to get all the materials, all the facts gathered from the scientists, from the experts on the topic, and review that and make a more informed decision.
Mr. Sierra.
So one of my greats, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, the most dangerous people are those who took the line. So my position is very clear on CO2 pipelines. Right now, as it stands, it is not a safe measure. And it doesn't make sense that the community that we have very intentionally disinvested from, we would then increase the amount of harm that we've already created. So no, I wouldn't support the CO2 pipeline as it stands now. Now, that does not say that future conversation cannot happen, but that's with the understanding that I'm focused on people, not money, and definitely not policy. So as it stands now, no to the CO2 pipeline. And that's somebody who supports business. I mean, I'm literally VP of Chamber of Commerce. But that does not mean that we cannot revisit conversation later on down the line.
All right, next question. Talk to us about what current or additional green energy alternatives you believe that the Park District should be using, and if we do use them, whether it has been effective so far.
So we absolutely use green energy as alternative energy solutions. So a part of our tenure, we created 3 commitment documents that are our strategic pillars. One of them is the commitment to environmental sustainability. And as a result of that commitment document, actually written by the park board and supported by the staff, what has now happened is we've seen a very quick switch over from traditional fuel vehicles to now energy electric vehicles. We actually just purchased our first fleet last year. In addition to that, we're looking at solar panel energy as well, having conversations with individuals like Ameren, sun collectors, to figure out how we can reduce, or not reduce, but how we can increase the amount of green energy that are produced at our highest facilities. And we've actually seen that as well. We've had solar infrastructure installation at Proctor, I believe. I know we've had it at Lakeview, but there's definitely already efforts that are going on right now, and a lot of opportunity to scale.
Okay, Mr. Cassidy.
Yeah, the Park District, obviously, being the Park District, should focus a lot on being eco-friendly, and by doing you know, green and alternative energy is great. And I think, as Alex said, they have started to implement some of those solar panels on different facilities, converting some of the park district vehicles to electric vehicles, and pursuing that, I think should be one of the top priorities of the park district. So yeah, I mean, any opportunity to pursue green energy, I would be in favor for.
All right, and just a heads up for the audience, by my count, we're down to about the final 3 questions before we move to closing statements. So if anybody else does have questions to submit, please get them in now so that we can get them into the order. All right, Mr. Cassidy, the pillars of the Peoria Park District as identified are vibrancy, environmental sustainability, and DEIA, or diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. How would you apply these pillars when determining what programs to add or to cut?
I'm running for the Southern District, so I would be representing the people that live in the Southern District. So as a board, if we're proposing to cut programs across the board, I'm going to be in favor of supporting the ones in the Southern District. Bottom line, I'm going to support the constituents that I would represent. I think that's a 2-part question. Could you repeat them?
How would you apply the approach in determining which programs to either add or to cut?
Okay, so again, you know, I would be against cutting programs in the Southern District and in favor of promoting programs in the Southern District. As far as you mentioned DEI, DEIA, excuse me. You know, I think that in the past I've seen bids go out to contractors to out of state, and I think that is kind of a slap in the face to the people of Peoria, as I mentioned earlier, that tax money should stay in the community. And I think by keeping that money in the community would be a greater benefit to the people of Peoria than hiring a out-of-state contractor based on having one woman on their payroll.
Mr. Sierra.
So how will we leverage our 3 commitment documents to make a evaluation judgment calls to keep or?
How would you?
How would I? Okay. So we already do that. As a result of the diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility document, we've created a racial justice and equity evaluator that sits on our agenda for every piece of policy or action that's put in front of the board. So what that means is we take a 3-step lens and we say, does this meet our DEIA priorities? Does this meet our vibrancy priorities? And does it meet our environmental sustainability priorities? The truth is sometimes, actually not sometimes, most of the times, the answer is not always yes. So we have to then make a value-based call as to, well, what's going to have the greatest impact, what's going to have the best impact, and what's also going to have the least negative impact as well. With that being said, I think it needs to be clear that we need people in these seats that hold those core values near and dear to their hearts, whether or not those commitment documents are in place, especially diversity, equity, and inclusion. As Joe mentioned, with the new administration, that is going to look differently. And if we don't have people who have that embedded in their fabrics already, if that RJE lens doesn't exist, who's to say that they will apply that same philosophy when they're asked to cut or add?
All right, thank you. Your question next, followed by Mr. Cassidy. This is a little unusual. The Park District space is slated to shrink slightly within the next few years, with the renovations taking place just north of the edge of your district along Route 29. We're talking about the very, very gateway of Grandview Drive Park down at the base of the hill just past the bridge. What can the Park District do to ensure that particular area at probably one of our most photographed parks remains vibrant or defend the taking of any of that land?
Yeah, so I want to provide a foundation for that question in that we are not getting rid of any land. In fact, we are actually taking on more land. And that is proven, especially in that area. We just acquired parcels from DCEO in the state to expand the native preservation of that space. So I don't know where that information came from, but as it pertains to shrinking our space, I am in support of safeguarding as much green space as possible, because we know that when individuals, especially of the Southern District, again, lower moderate income households, very high risk for violence, high levels of lead, high respiratory issues, all of those very serious concerns are then not only positively impacted, but decreased as a result of direct exposure to green infrastructure. So, my stance is preserve, protect, and expand as much as possible and reasonably and responsibly. Now, that being said, when I first got on this board, I think something that is important to stick out is the Southern District is the only district in the Park District that does not have any state protected land. So what that means is people can come in and bulldoze all they want. So one of my priorities is that we get protected land, again, in our most disenfranchised district, and get serious about the work that we're doing when we talk about improving the quality of life for our residents.
All right, Mr. Cassidy.
It's my understanding that work is being done to expand the road and allow, easier path for all the citizens. I'm not in favor of selling land or shrinking land. I want to preserve all the Park District land that we can. But I also think it's important to cooperate with other units of government to help the citizens of Peoria. I believe the people taking on that job have also are moving the pavilion. And as Alex said, we're taking on more land. And so I don't think that particular piece of land and them using it to expand the road is like very high on the list of issues going on right now. So to that specific question, I don't really see an issue with it. I think it's important that we cooperate and compromise to, help the citizens the best that we can.
All right, and I'll cop to a different interpretation on that one than the facts that you gave on the ground floor, both of you. So thank you for that. We are going to move to closing statements. And Mr. Cassidy, that begins with you, and then to Mr. Sierra.
So I grew up going to all the Park District facilities. My father served on the board for 32 years, so it's been a part of my life forever. He stepped down when I was elected to join as trustee for the Central District. After a hard decision to step down from that seat, I relocated to Atlanta, Georgia, and now that I come back, I'm trying to get involved in the Park District again. And it's because I'm very passionate about Peoria, and I'm very, very passionate about the Park District. This is a volunteer position. I'm not a politician. I'm not the best public speaker, as you've all probably figured that out by now. So I'm not doing this to get my name out there or to jump to another office. I'm doing this because I care about the Park District, and with my background, I feel like I can make a difference.
All right, Mr. Sierra.
Joe, you're doing just fine, trust me. So again, my name's Alex Sierra, your current Southern District trustee on the Peoria Park District Board of Trustees. And I'd like to say that it is refreshing to see so much family in this room, because you know me. And to know me is to know that my focuses have been, again, any and all opportunities that present an opportunity for growth for all, centered around innovation, creation, connection, sustainability, and most importantly, hope. Understanding that Hope is the only force stronger than fear, and fear is what leads to stagnation and complacency, everything opposite of what we represent, and everything opposite of what we continue to do as we remain in this space. So I ask for your vote. Vote Alex Sierra for Southern District Trustee as we continue to work that we've already started with a vision for the South Side and a focus on the entire community.
All right, thank you very much to you both. I would encourage everyone in the audience to applaud both our candidates. Thank you all for your attendance and your questions. Please remember that early voting begins March 17 and the general election is on April 1st. All right, thank you all. And we'll take just a couple of minutes to reset ourselves, and we'll begin at 2:30 with the forum for the first district.
Yeah.
Great.